Hey friends, I'm Christy and you're listening to Rock the Damn Boat. If you've ever bitten your tongue to keep the peace or said yes when every part of you wants to say no, this one's for you. We're diving into the messy, real stuff that people pleasers like me have spent years avoiding. It's time to have the hard conversations, shake things up, and learn to stand tall even when it makes waves. And this month, it's March, Women's History Month, and we are talking about women who quite literally made waves. My grandmother was a real-life Rosie the Riveter at the shipyards in Oakland, California, and I just finished a manuscript loosely based on her life. My novel is set in that world, and throughout this month, we'll explore Hollywood during wartime, unconventional careers, small-town life, the realities of marriage, and LGBTQ milestones in history. Because the courage to live outside the script has always been part of how history moves forward. So this month, let's travel back in time to rock the damn boat. I am so excited by the guest who is joining me today. Her and I go all the way back to college. She was my college roommate, Christy, spelled the right way. And I think back to the answering machine. That dates us too. But, if you're calling for Christy C, press 1. Christy, it was S at the time, press 2. Yeah. And if you don't know which Christy, press 3. Yeah, we had a great experience in college. And I was really interested in having Christy on because she has her own podcast with a friend, Danielle, called The Screening Lounge. And I'll tell you a little bit about The Screening Lounge. It is the ultimate TV and movie podcast for streaming recommendations, binge-worthy TV reviews, and honest takes on what to watch next. Each week, hosts Christy and Danielle help put a stop to endless scrolling with reviews of best shows to watch right now, what's new on Netflix, HBO, Hulu, and Prime, plus upcoming movies and hidden gems you'll love. As we kick off Women's History Month, I knew that Christy was going to be the resident expert for women in film and TV and historical moments in film. So welcome to the show, Christy.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I am loving your podcast and the community that you're building for women. It's just phenomenal. And thank you so much for that great intro. I can't say I'm an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but we know what we like on our podcast. And we hope we save time for our listeners to decide what's binge worthy or not worth their time.
Love it. And I was listening to the latest episode talking about The Night Agent, and that's one that I keep hearing about, but I hadn't watched yet. So then at your urging, I was like, oh, maybe I'll put that up next on my list.
Yeah, it's a great show. Watch it.
You've had Oscar parties at your house for as long as I can remember. So your love of film goes way back. What for you just creates that magic?
I think the ability for someone to take a movie or a television show and just transport us to a completely different place in time. You have the craziness of the world. You want a little escape to get away from the craziness of life and your stressors. And it's just a great escape. And I just love being transported in time or into a different place. It's just fun.
It's so true. And for me, I love to write. And when I think about a good book, it translates into a good script. So there's a lot of things when I can appreciate the writing behind the scenes that takes someone that then a director and producer, all of that bring to life. So huge creative outlet for so many people.
Definitely.
Well, speaking of which, I just finished a manuscript, and it is a World War II era, mostly a fiction historical account, but based on my grandmother. And one of my characters' name is Nancy, and she's an aspiring actress. So I thought, well, this would be great too, to just tie in this idea of how acting for women has unfolded in both film and TV. And we had looked at a couple of lists of first women in film and TV. For you, who comes to mind in early days? And it could be in our lifetime or further back. Who really stands out to you right away?
I think the first person that jumps to mind is someone like Katharine Hepburn because
Mm,
she always had these bold, gutsy roles, and she wore pants, which was, oh my god, so scandalous.
true.
So she's the first person, and she has the Academy Awards to back that up. Just being an incredible actress and just the roles that she chose. And I'm sure at that time they were probably chosen for her more so than her choosing them, but she just brought such life to those roles.
Oh gosh, yes. She is a great example. And then I think about Diane Keaton, who we just recently lost, and same pants and less traditional attire and kind of that strong personality. I'm sure she was heavily influenced by Katharine Hepburn. I was thinking about how interesting it was for me of early female women in TV who had their own shows and what that might have been like, the Patty Duke show or the Donna
Right.
Reed show. And I wonder, it doesn't seem that groundbreaking now for a woman
Uh-huh.
to have her own TV show, but at the time that was probably a big deal. Now, whether or not the roles they played in those shows as a housewife or whatever
Right.
was might have been very stereotypical, but yeah, it could just go any direction, whether it's TV or film.
I love too that yes, they started in the traditional roles, but then I think one of the lists had Mary Tyler Moore listed, and just the difference as the world changed, those roles had to change too. With Mary Tyler Moore, she played in her show where she's this single woman in a newsroom with a bunch of men, and you start seeing them address issues that weren't previously addressed in television. So I love that evolution.
Yes, that's true. And that leads me down the path of Murphy Brown and other
Right.
shows that
Yeah.
are commonplace for us or younger women today. We may not even realize that groundbreaking influence of a show that did it first. And now we just take it for granted that women are going to be represented on the screen in a certain way.
Right. It's pretty neat. And I just remember as a kid watching things like Wonder Woman, where you have a woman who is a superhero and Charlie's Angels with these women who are doing jobs that usually were performed by men. And, they
Yes.
were just kicking butt out there. So that was a great thing to see as a young girl.
That's true. Such a role model for who we could be and seeing that. And I was thinking about boat rocking role models for me in
Uh-huh.
film, and my mind went straight to Gal Gadot in Wonder Woman. But when you think
Yes.
about it again, if we trace it back, that goes much further back. And Linda Gray, was it that played
Linda Carter.
Wonder Linda Carter. Yeah,
Yes.
there was another Linda. Linda Carter played Wonder Woman in the TV show, and then yeah, whole new generation getting to see Wonder Woman up on the big screen. So if we follow kind of a timeline
Uh-huh.
of historical Hollywood, the Oscars started in 1929. Is that
Right.
correct?
That's right.
So there were awards for actresses that early on. So we were represented both men and women
Yeah.
in the Oscars.
Right.
But the first woman to win Best Director for an Oscar was Catherine Bigelow for The Hurt Locker in 2010. That was only
Yes.
16 years ago.
It is so crazy, and I love having a woman win, but then to think she was directing The Hurt Locker, which is a gritty military war movie, which is just not traditionally what a woman would be thought to make. She was definitely stepping outside the norm with that. I love that for her.
Yes, that's true. I was researching a little bit on so female cinematographers only make up 4% of membership in the American Society of Cinematography,
Wow.
which is crazy. 4%. And so I was learning a little bit about Rachel Morrison, who was nominated for Mudbound, and then she was the cinematographer on Black Panther, which was the first movie to gross $1 billion.
Oh, wow.
And kind of like you're saying about Catherine Bigelow, it was like, well, that was a comic movie and a really action-packed
Mhm.
movie. So same situation.
And it was beautifully done. It was amazing.
I am sad to report that I have not seen that one. So I'll have to go back and watch that now that I have learned more about just the behind the scenes of that. Are there any other noteworthy Oscar award winners or firsts that you've seen with your experience with the show?
I think the big one recently was probably Chloe Zhao. She was the first person of color, who won the Academy Award also for Best Directing, which is amazing. I think she's technically the second woman to win for that. And she was nominated for Nomadland. That's what she had won for. And she's nominated again this year for Hamnet. She's
Wow.
just got that record of those great movies and that great direction.
That's exciting. I had seen that about Nomadland, which was a phenomenal film. I did see that
Hmm.
one. It's great to hear more about women behind the scenes. One of the things that I went down a rabbit hole with all of the different information we could talk about
It's
today
easy
and
to
just
do.
yes. I found a report called the Celluloid Ceiling Report, and it's put
Hmm.
out by San Diego State University. And it's all about women in TV and film behind the camera. And I'll just share a few of the stats that I learned. What I like to frame it up as is demographics in the world are pretty much always 50-50. So half men, half
Right.
women. So we think about anything that women should be represented in is at half. And last year, and this is talking about top 250 films, but last year
Okay.
women accounted for 13% of directors working on the top 250 films. And that was
Wow.
down 3 percentage points from 16% in 2024. So just such a small percentage of women directors working in those big blockbuster films.
That's
Um,
crazy.
I wonder, and I don't know anything behind that. This just scratches the surface for me, but what it's like, and if it's really that, is it that challenging, or is it, a lack of interest? And maybe that's because, like you've said, we don't see that modeled like maybe we do
Right.
in other areas. We're seeing more and more women in the acting side of things, getting
Right.
better representation and financial compensation, but it still does seem like there's a long way to go.
Yeah. And I think there are more women who are directing, and hopefully that stat will change. And you have people like Greta Gerwig, who did the Barbie movie, among other
Yes.
things. And there's quite a few that are up and coming. So I hope that that is a good sign for the future.
Yes, absolutely. I love that you bring up Greta Gerwig because I think I have watched her come up from independent films and kind of make
Hmm.
her smaller screen debut and different
Right.
things that she acted in and directed and wrote, and then to have a blockbuster like Barbie. Absolutely. Maybe that's a great trajectory and a sign of things to come. When we think about women on the screen, a lot of us remember Halle Berry being the first Black woman to win an Oscar
Right.
for Best Actress. Hattie McDaniel had won Best Supporting Actress in Gone with the Wind back in 1939. And then we had Halle Berry winning for Monsters Ball in 2002. That was a powerful performance. I
It
remember that
was. That
movie
was.
still.
It is a memorable role, and it's definitely one that, I mean, I don't think anybody could play that the way she did. She was just incredible.
I remember her acceptance speech and just how powerful and emotional all of that was. Again, thinking about some of these things didn't happen until the 21st century, though. It's like, 2002, and then Catherine Bigelow in 2010. So,
Yeah.
um,
We've made great
it's
strides, but we have a long way to go for sure.
yes. We're inspired and motivated, just like you said, by seeing the women on screen and seeing these
Uh-huh.
roles. Are there other strong, powerful characters that come to mind for you? Like these women are empowering and embodying these boat rocking characters.
Gosh, there are so many that come to mind. I don't know if you've watched it. It's not on the air anymore, but Mad Men. Peggy Olson is a character that I don't know, she just sticks with me because she started as this really timid secretary. She seems like she just wants to blend into the background forever and be content as a secretary, but I think she starts to realize that, I have great ideas too. These men are coming up with these things, but mine are even better than theirs. And she kind of flips the script and breaks into that boys club of advertising and just becomes a marketing badass. And I just love that. And she doesn't do it alone. She has her friend Joan, who happens to be the head of the secretary pool. But Joan knows how to play the system and how to get into the good graces of the men in the office. And so you see Peggy over time evolving into
Mhm.
this strong, confident woman. And when she leaves, she's leaving with a box of stuff in her hand, the red lipstick and the cigarette dangling and the sunglasses. And the men are just looking at her like, oh, and I love her character because of that evolution.
That time period, absolutely, that would have been rocking the boat in a big way, and
Yeah.
I love that that stands out for you because when we think about not only those characters, but again, the writing behind them and the women who are bringing those characters to life, it just creates this experience that is so inspiring. I don't even know that I can think of anything off the top of my head. Said Gal Gadot in Wonder Woman to
Mhm.
me was just the epitome of power and beauty. I was reminded recently of the movie Romancing the Stone. And Kathleen Turner's character, Joan Wilder, in that movie was the first to inspire me that writing could be a career. And so to watch her in the opening scene and she's finishing her novel and she's crying at her own romance novel, and to watch her go from being this quiet, shy, behind the typewriter writer to then she gets immersed in this full on adventure and
Right.
has to become the heroine of her own story. That's one that I was thinking back to how much she inspired me, and then that whole adventure. Now she does, get her happily ever after with her knight in shining armor, but
Right.
she was a pretty badass in that movie. So
That's so true. And I forgot about that movie. It is such a good movie. I need to watch that
yeah.
again.
Well, it was one of those AI representations of how all of those actors have aged, and so then
Mm,
I have to remind myself that that was a long time ago. But
right.
I have been watching a lot of these women, though, age. And now, granted, there are things that you can do to make yourself look a little younger, but there's so
Right.
many actresses that have had longevity in TV and film. I think there was a point in time where there was a lot of talk, and maybe it's still true to some degree, where aging actresses just disappeared out of film, out
Right.
of TV, couldn't get work anymore because they had aged out of it. And now we're seeing, again, maybe a little bit of help from a nip and a tuck and a little Botox,
Right.
but the fact that so many women have been able to make longer careers. You use the example of Katharine Hepburn. She acted up until her golden years, and I'm
Yeah.
watching actresses like Connie Britton and Annie McDowell. I'm
Hmm.
continuing to see resurface on TV. She
Right.
was in Maid with her daughter, which was an amazing TV show.
That was great.
So I love seeing these actresses that we've grown up with and who were
Hmm.
maybe super young when we started continuing to work.
Yeah, I love that. I think Jean Smart is a great example. She was in Designing
Yes.
Women and now she's in Hacks. And her character is hilarious. She's defying those age and gender stereotypes in her role as a comedian and getting a late night talk show, which is unheard of, almost from unheard of for women. And I want to say she's in her 70s and she's just out there. She's winning awards. She's gotten Golden Globes and Emmys for that role. And she's just amazing. I love seeing that you don't necessarily have that. Your career is dead when you hit this number, so it's
Yes.
wonderful.
And I think that that's something that is shifting. So this is kind of a weird scenario, but we do inner mentor ceremonies in my yoga community, and we imagine ourselves 10, 20 years out and envision the future. And for whatever reason, my inner mentor is never me. It's Lois Smith, the actress who was in, she was in How to Make an American Quilt years ago. And she was older in that movie, and she
Mhm.
continues to act. She was in a movie with John Hamm a few years ago, and I'm forgetting the name of it. She always plays wise, quiet characters. She
Right.
always has this quiet wisdom about her, and she's one of my role models, and she's 95.
Things to shoot for, right?
We just watched Eleanor.
The
Are you gonna?
Great. I haven't
Yes.
watched it yet. So that is on my list. How was it?
I think the actress in it is 94.
Oh,
I was
wow.
looking it up after the fact, and it was an amazing movie. It meant a lot to me because her involvement with the Jewish community, and I was with a Jewish-based company, and just the culture that she was part of and feeling welcomed in, and it was an incredible movie. I didn't know what to expect. Ryan even sat down, my husband sat down and watched it with me, and I didn't think it would be his cup of tea, but we both really enjoyed it. And I think she had gotten her start pretty early on, so she's made a lifetime career
Oh,
out of it.
wow.
Shifting gears from actresses or characters, I know I asked you because I was able to think of a boat rocking scene right off the top of my head, and I gave you an opportunity to think about this
Right.
because
Yes. Yes.
I told you what mine was. And so just for the audience to think about as you're listening, if there's any scene in a movie with a woman that you're like, oh, that was really out of the box at the time. And I think back to When Harry Met Sally and Meg Ryan faking the orgasm at the diner table at the cafe.
Right. That's definitely
And
memorable.
oh, that is such a memorable moment. And if we have younger listeners, go and watch that movie. It was so incredible at the time that I think so unexpected, not only from the witnesses in the diner where she was at, but also just for us as moviegoers and watchers and thinking, wow, first of all, she's saying what a lot of us know to be true.
Right. Exactly.
And second of all, just the power and energy she put behind that performance was incredible. That was
Yeah.
a memorable scene that I'm sure still has life today. What comes to mind for you as something that was just really cutting edge at the time?
There were several that came to mind. One of them was the scene from Norma Ray, which I don't know. It wasn't maybe not cutting edge because it was based on the story of something that happened in the early 70s. But just when she gets up on the table, I think she was working in a textile mill and very horrible working conditions, and she gets on the table because she's revolting with her big sign where she's written union and she's holding it up, and all of a sudden her coworkers start turning off their machinery and it just gets really silent. And I think, that silence speaks volumes, their
Yes.
solidarity. But that to me was just such an incredible scene, the way, shows someone that one person can make a change.
And that was Sally Fields, correct?
Right.
Who,
Huh.
in that role, just being such a tiny person, and and so to her to have that powerful energy, she's
That and
always been one of my favorites.
I think that even won her very first Academy Awards,
Yes.
and then she just kept going. She's still going today.
Yeah, she is incredible. When we think about these actresses that we are talking about, milestones or firsts or just creating these characters that we remember so well, what qualities do you think are a through line for these actresses that make them so brave in this industry?
I think, part of it is just knowing what you want and having that vision. And I notice one thing you do each year is the vision board. I've not been as good at that. I used to be really good at that. But knowing what you want, and that way you can kind of build that path to how to get there. And I feel like these women, I'm thinking they probably all have these goals and kind of outlined. And just that can do, the attitude, that tenacity.
Mm.
We know Hollywood's famous for no's and constant rejection. So I can imagine as a woman, it's even greater, especially when you get into writing and producing and directing and things like that. Just having that tenacity to keep going, brush yourself off, be able to adapt. The adaptability is probably
Yes.
big.
Absolutely. My character in my novel, Nancy, is just trying so hard and she's beautiful and talented, but the competition is so fierce. So I can't imagine. I almost admire her as a character because she's got that tenacity that I think, oh,
Mhm.
I would definitely not be able to have that intrinsic self-worth that you
Right.
would need to know that, okay, you don't get this role, you'll get the next, or the anticipation of if you're a director or behind the scenes and waiting to see box office performance
Right.
and what that means. But when I think about when I write and the level of creativity and the enjoyment and fulfillment I get out of that creative process, then I have to imagine that helps too. Is like you put your heart and
Definitely.
soul into something, regardless of the outcome, whether or not it's going to garner you an award or be a box office smash. I'm sure they've put their heart and soul. Greta Gerwig is the perfect example again of someone who created her own films for the love of it and then ended up
Right.
with Barbie. When it comes to characters, what are those traits that you admire in characters? What is your favorite type of female character?
Well, I mean, I don't know. This might be the case for most women, but I just love those tough, badass women. Princess Leia was the first one, I think, that, besides
Yes.
Linda Carter and Wonder Woman, but Princess Leia
Right.
was not the damsel in distress. She wasn't going to wait around for people to rescue her. And there were times when she was rescuing other people. She was just tough. I like that because I've always been the more quiet, timid type. So seeing that just was inspiring.
She's a great example. I didn't even watch the show, but my mind went to Alias with Jennifer
Ah,
Garner.
that's a great
And
show.
so to not even have watched the show, I caught an episode or two, but to not have watched it regularly, but be thinking about women that I admire for the same reason, for being
Uh-huh.
a badass. Her character still stands out in my mind, and of course that was one of her first roles, that first of many. So
That was
yeah,
one of my favorites too, for that
I
reason.
yes, I loved Angelina Jolie as Laura Croft because
Yes.
she was a badass. So I gravitate towards the same type of women and actresses as like the ones that are really physically commanding and just never quite got there in my own life.
Mhm.
But yeah, I love to see it on screen.
Yeah, I think my next favorite would be more of the intellectual, like smart, but also using that in a unusual role, like someone like Clarice Starling from Silence of the Lambs.
Oh,
She's CIA, and you have to use your intellect, but you also have to be brave, and she wasn't afraid to be vulnerable, so she had a little bit of all of that.
who are you watching right now? Who's your favorite role model right now on TV or film?
Oh goodness. I'm currently watching a show called Ponies, and it's kind of fun because it's about two women whose husband work for, I believe it's the CIA. I think that's the agency they're working for in Russia. And their husbands are killed in a plane crash, and they somehow convince their husband's boss to make them or to hire them basically as agents. And so they have no clue what they're doing. They're just going on gut and grit. And I like that. Just kind of fun. It's, not a serious, show, but it's entertaining, and the female leads are fantastic. Shoot, I can't remember her name, who plays Daenerys in Game of Thrones.
Oh,
She's one of the
okay.
lead actresses, so they're just fun to follow, and they've got this rapport with each other that's fun to watch.
Oh, I'll have to check that out. I've read the trailer and
Mhm.
I started to watch it and I picked something else the night I was sitting down to watch some TV. So I'll have to go back and check that one out based on your
Definitely.
recommendation.
Let me know what you think.
I watched about 5 minutes of the Actor Awards last night
Mhm.
before my parents called, and I saw that Carrie Russell won an award for The Diplomat. And I watched that. It was a little slow for me, but I love her from The Americans also. So
Definitely.
I love watching her just with that same like quiet grace, but also a strong attitude, and she kind of had that same type of role in The Americans. I had no idea. I don't know. I must have been living under a rock. I had no idea that her and Matthew Reese were actually together in real life.
Yeah,
I
yeah, I
was
think
so
that
excited to see
happened.
that.
Maybe when they were filming The Americans or
I
something?
would imagine, yeah.
Yeah, and
But
they are both doing great as far as their careers are concerned.
yeah, for sure. The Beast Within Me with Claire Danes
Mhm.
was his latest starring role, and her in The Diplomat. So, yeah,
Yeah.
TV power couple. Well, Christy, this has been incredible. I know you said you're not necessarily an expert, but you know more about TV and film than anyone I know, and enough to bring it to audiences through the screening lounge. So, I think that's great, and I loved talking a little bit about all the women that we admire in TV and film in Hollywood, because not only have I written that character into my story, but just when we think about women in history, There are so many amazing milestones happening in Hollywood, and yet so many still to go and so many strides that
Right.
we can continue to make. And us supporting women in film and supporting female directed movies, we're helping to propel those careers, I think is super important too. So,
Definitely. Keep watching the movies. Go see them in theaters when you can. And
yeah.
yeah, keep supporting them.
We'll be anxious to hear your recommendations in the future, and I appreciate you coming on. I love to close my show with the question, who is your boat rocking role model? So we've talked a lot about TV and film, but if you
Mhm.
think just in your own life, who is your boat rocking role model?
Well, I would definitely say my mother is the first person that comes to mind, but I kind of thought about keeping that with the Hollywood theme, if that's okay.
Sure.
And I think that would be probably no surprise to you because I think I was a big fan back then, but Audrey Hepburn. She has this incredible arc of going from a malnourished child in World War II, where she actually has been said to have helped the resistance by raising money and also carrying messages for the resistance in her shoes during World War II. And then ended her life as this UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador. So yes, she had the acting in between, but I feel like she didn't just decide to rest in that comfort of being a Hollywood actress and successful Hollywood actress. She went on to go to these undeveloped countries and fight for children and help with children who had that same kind of background, actually more
Mm.
so, I'm sure, than she did. But to me, she was unique and just a legend in her own way.
Absolutely. And using that platform as an actress
Uh-huh.
to be able to help bring awareness like
Exactly.
she did. So, incredible. Well, people can catch you on the screening lounge, and I have had a wonderful time catching up with you. So, thank you all for listening to the show, and thank you, Christy, for being here.
Thank you for the invite. It's been fun.
You've been listening to Rock the Damn Boat, a podcast produced and recorded by Christy Hughes. You can follow, subscribe on both Apple and Spotify, and your 5-star review goes a long way. Thank you so much for your support of the show.